Today I'm diving into the deep, dark world of distortion pedals. And this is not a shootout. It's not a shootout. Maybe it's no, it's not a shootout. What's going on, everyone? I hope life is treating you okay. Yes, today we're talking about distortion pedals. Now, I have a confession to make. I actually don't use distortion pedals. In fact, I've only ever owned one distortion pedal, and that's this Rat. This is an original Rat, handmade in the original factory. I actually did a video about this, and because I don't really use it, and I thought, well, maybe I'll revisit it, and maybe it's something I'll start using. Well, spoiler alert, I got a lot of comments from people saying I was using it wrong. Now, if you want to check out that video, I'll put a link in the description. But I decided to check out some distortion pedals, mainly because of this Invader distortion that I reviewed as part of the Maestro pedal line. Another video, if you haven't checked out, I'll put a link in the description. But I have to mention, the rest of these pedals were provided courtesy of Long and McQuade. That's Canada's largest musical instrument retailer. And no, this is not a sponsored review. They've just been super awesome in supporting this channel, and they loan me gear so I can test it out and share it with you guys. Now, if you are in the market for a distortion pedal, long-mcquade.com, you'll get all the information you could ever need. And of course, if you're in Canada, with 80 plus stores across Canada, there's never one too far away, so make sure to drop in. Anyway, so the plan for today is I'm gonna revisit this old Rat. I'm gonna take a look at the Invader, which I already did, and I've introduced 4 other pedals here just to see, number one, the differences, and that's what I can share with you guys. If you're in the market for a distortion pedal, what are the similarities? What are the differences? I mean, distortion pedals have different applications. You could just be jamming, you just want to stomp on some high gain distortion. Well, there's a pedal for you. Some people like to stack their distortions or blend them with overdrives, or, there's a lot of different applications. I'm a recording guitarist, and I'm always looking for different ways to create tone. I'm always layering my guitar. So I'm looking for a piece to add to what I call the sum of the parts of my tone. And I want to see, perhaps I was using the Rat pedal wrong. Maybe it will survive and get back into my workflow. Maybe I'll discover a new one in the mix here. So you're going to get to hear all of these pedals on their own. And in the end of this video, I'm going to make a decision. Are we going to keep the old one? Are we going to buy a new one? Let's find out. Jump in and get started. All right, so what I've done here, I've got the pedals all set up. Now the order here, with the exception of the Rat, which is mine, that's first, this 86 vintage Rat. The rest of them are ordered by relative price. I'll put the relative price on screen. I don't want to sort of date this video too much, but just to give you an idea, if budget is an issue, you have the least expensive pedal here, and then sort of, mid-range pricing, and then the most expensive one at the end. Signal chain, we've got the Gibson Howard Roberts Fusion, a humbucker in the bridge position that's running through the series of pedals, into the face of the Grand Maestro Deluxe 40 by Hughes and Kettner on the clean channel. I've actually got the pickup rolled off a little bit, and then that output goes into a 2-notes Torpedo Capture X. I'm using a Friedman 4x12 cab IR, and that goes straight into the interface and into the DAW with no processing in the mix. Let's take a listen to the clean tone. All right, let's start off with the ProCo Rat. Next on the list is the Boss DS1 Distortion. Next up is the JHS Series 3 Distortion. And now let's check out the Distortion Plus from MXR. Next up is the Gibson Maestro Invader Distortion. And last on the list, and I have to give it a special mention, is the Empress Heavy. This is a dual circuit distortion pedal. There's actually two individual circuits, and then there's actually an EQ, a two-band EQ to EQ the whole pedal. I'm going to focus on the left side. That's the heavy circuit. They're not radically different. The heavier just sounds a little different to me, but obviously you have the ability to set two different types of distortion settings. So we're going to focus on the heavy here, and much like the other pedals, everything's at noon with the exception of the output volume. Let's take a listen. And now let's listen to all the pedals back to back. So I've spent some time with the pedals, and I've come up with different settings for each one, and then I track them into the song that I'm working on. So I'm going to play it back to you with a little commentary, just so you can hear each pedal roughly in the mix. This is not a finished tone, because my plan is to choose the distortion pedal that I feel that I can work with, and I'm going to blend it with other sources, likely an overdriven amp, perhaps a clean tone. So the distortion pedal that I choose, I'll showcase that at the end as sort of my final tone. But let's take a listen to the different pedals in action so you can hear the differences between them. All right, so which way am I going to go? Am I going to use the old Rat pedal? Am I going to bring a new distortion pedal into the mix, or am I going to abandon the whole idea of using distortion pedals? Well, I can tell you that I've made a decision and that I'm going to introduce a pedal into my mix here, into my workflow. So what we're going to do, this is a top 6. So I'm going to start with number 6 and work it up to number 1, the pedal that will be introduced into service here in my studio. So number 6 on my list here is the DS1 from Boss. The thing about this one, it makes me think a lot about sort of 80s heavy metal, at least on its own. But I think the DS1 is used on all sorts of tracks by all sorts of players. I know some players will push an amp to its max and maybe add this in just to tighten up the bottom end a little bit. That's when it becomes a really serviceable pedal, where you're not really looking for the characteristics of this pedal to be the sole source of your tone. It's going to be something that's going to be in combination with other things. On its own, it's not really my sound, but it's a very serviceable pedal, and it's also the cheapest pedal on our list here today. So if your budget doesn't permit a big expenditure, the Boss DS1 is certainly a great pedal. I'm not even going to call it entry level, because a lot of pros use this pedal, so you're going to get a lot of use out of it. But in my list, it's number 6. So number 5 on my list is my trusty old Rat pedal. It actually performed a little bit better than I thought it would, but the thing about the Rat that I've never liked is it's kind of gnarly and fuzzy. In fact, some people mistake it for a fuzz tone, which it's not. It is a pure distortion pedal. It just, when you start to drive it too hard, it's a really angry distortion. But in the mix, in combination with other instruments, it certainly has its use. And you know what? I own it. It's not going anywhere. But on my list today, it's number 5. So number 4 on my list is the MXR Distortion Plus. Now, this is a very specific kind of distortion. In fact, I was reading a lot about this pedal, and a lot of people like to sort of turn the distortion down and drive the output to push the amp, almost like you would use an overdrive pedal. So I kind of did that, and it's a kind of an aggressive overdrive. I've got overdrive covered in the studio, and it was a little too close to those tones, but there is a very specific flavor that you're going to get out of this one. Like I said, that very late 70s hard rock distortion sound, very sort of I almost dropped it, but I didn't. Anyways, a very serviceable sound, very classic sound, absolutely. Not something that I think works with my particular tone, but definitely if this is the kind of tone that you're going for, the MXR Distortion Plus certainly not going to disappoint you. All right, we're into the top 3. This was quite difficult because these are 3 really, really good pedals for my use, but I had to choose one. So number 3 is the JHS Series 3 Distortion. You know what? I really, really like this pedal, actually. It was really hard to rank this one number 3. It's a very versatile pedal. It is a distortion pedal, but you can get kind of overdrive tones and all the way up to fuzz tones. There's a gain switch in here, so you can sort of take that gain up a notch and really drive it really hard. But what I found at sort of that noon setting, which was pretty close to what I used in the track, it's a very clean, articulate distortion. If you like to hear the notes and not have an oversaturated sound, you're going to get some really nice tones out of this pedal, 100%. Oh, I might revisit this at some time in the future, but for the purposes of this exercise, this one is number 3. All right, we're down to the top 2. Which one is going to be the winner in this little non-shootout? Really like these last 2 pedals, and it was kind of a difficult decision, but not really. Number 2 is the Empress Heavy. Now, I have to say, I absolutely love this pedal. This is a very versatile distortion pedal. The fact that you've got 2 independent circuits, you've got a noise gate built in, independent gates for each circuit, you've got a 2-band EQ, and the distortion is killer. I really, really like this pedal. The reason I didn't choose this one, it's a bit overkill for what I need here in the studio. If I was gigging 100%, or if this was the core of my tone, this is going to give you a lot of options, and it's a really great sounding distortion. But it has a bit too much for what I need here in the studio, where I'm looking for something to complement other tones here in the studio. So for that reason alone, I ranked this one number 2. And that leaves the pedal that started this whole distortion non-shootout, the one that I tried in my last video, and that is the Maestro Invader distortion pedal. You know what? I really liked it when I heard it. This is a girthy distortion. I mean, you get a big, thick, fat sound out of this thing. I think the Empress has a bit better clarity, actually, to be honest, over this one. But this sound is really, really thick and big, and I love big guitars. On its own, I probably wouldn't use this as the core tone for my guitars, but certainly complemented by other layers, other overdriven sounds, other clean sounds blended together, it really will contribute to a really, really big sound. Really love this. It has a built-in gate, which is definitely comes in handy. These pedals of this Maestro line is inspired by vintage pedals, but this is a very modern sounding distortion to me. There's not a lot vintage about it, though I notice when you drive it harder, you get a little of that fizziness on top. Perhaps that's the vintage influence, I don't know, but I really like this pedal, and I've decided to purchase this one, and we'll be hearing this pedal in more tracks coming up here on the channel. All right, here's the Maestro Invader Distortion working with 2 other guitar tracks to shape a complete guitar tone. Let's take a listen. Well, there you have my 6 distortion pedal unshootout. I certainly hope you found that educational. It was for me, just hearing them side by side and hearing all the differences. It's amazing. Distortion pedals are not created equal, but they each have their own thing. Now, I picked the one that was the best for me, but all of these pedals will service anyone. In fact, each one of these is probably somebody's favorite. It all depends on the sounds that you're looking for. But if you need any information about these pedals, my good friends at Long and McQuade will be happy to take care of you. long-mcquade.com. And if you're in Canada, like I said, there's a location not too far from you. So drop in and check it out. And I want to thank them once again for providing the additional pedals for this video. If you did enjoy this video, I would love to hear your thoughts. Perhaps you can let me know in the comments. You could like, subscribe, ring the bell. If you want to do a deeper dive with me, I am on Patreon. I have affiliate links. All of those are in the description. Every little bit helps, and I really appreciate that. But the most important thing is to check out another video. I've got one waiting for you right here. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. And I look forward to seeing you again in another video.